Previously, I made a video about an agentic AI application that I've developed to find sales prospect when the user key in a chat message to say, please help me to find a prospect for selling accounting software to US major accounting firms. Now, in this video, I'm going to turn that AI application into a sub workflow whereby it will be a tool for an MCP server that I'm going to build. So here I have just ran this workflow or this AI application, just to recap a little bit, whereby this sales prospect finder AI agent executed Firecrawl MCP client to search a web, and also executed Hunter.io MCP client to look for email addresses. And this is the output that we got. These are the so-called prospects that's being found by this AI agent. In this video, I want to demonstrate that this entire workflow of an agent calling MCP clients, which in turn call the MCP clients call MCP servers, this whole thing can be turned into a tool for an MCP server that I'm going to build. Before building the MCP server, I have to first clone the previous AI application and call it prospecting sub-agent workflow. And what I've done is I've changed this node. This node supposed to receive chat message, so I've changed it to be a different node where it expects this workflow to be executed by another workflow. So how this works is that in N8N, you just have to create this trigger node when executed by another workflow, and then this node will expect the trigger coming in the form of a query with a query string, and the query string will be sent to the AI agent. Rest of the process will be the same. A point to note that if I'm going to make this sub workflow to be able to be used by other applications external from this workflow, I need to publish it so that it will expose its production URL. In order to publish this, to expose its production URL, I just have to press this publish button. So now this workflow is published. What it means is that this entire workflow can be accessible externally over internet. Next, I built another app called Prospecting MCP, whereby in this app, there will be an MCP server trigger. What that means is that this MCP server will have an endpoint, test endpoint, test URL, and production URL endpoint. Externally, this will be the link for any application on internet to use to access this MCP server. In N8N, it's very easy to create your MCP server to expose workflows that you have as a tool. So here, I have a node called MCP server node, and it's connected to a tool, whereby this tool is actually this prospecting sub-agent that I have here. Okay, so this entire chunk of nodes, it's a tool from the perspective of the MCP server. So how do I connect the MCP server to the tool or to the workflow? Is by specifying here from list. And because I already published my workflow, from here I can have a drop down and say because this is the only workflow that I published, I'm able to see this as an option. Now this is done. So once I've completed this configuration, I will publish this MCP server so that its production URL can be accessible from internet. Now it's already published. I'll take this production URL. I'll use it from another app. Now that we have published the MCP server, I will demonstrate how I use another app, which in this case is Claude. I will use Claude to call MCP as a tool, call my MCP server as the tool. So how to do that is that in Claude, the way you connect Claude to an MCP server is by setting up a custom connector. By default, these are connectors that comes with Claude. So you click here, add custom connector. Remember just now I have copied the production URL of my MCP server. So now I paste it here. And this MCP server, I'll just call it test prospect finder MCP server. No authentication required, so I'll just add it. Now, as soon as I've added this connector, Claude is able to see what sub-tools that this MCP server have, or APIs that this server have, or my server, MCP server have. So I need to do some configuration to say there's no need for approval, it's always allowed. So now I've done connecting Claude to my MCP server. We can start using it. We can start using this MCP server by letting Claude know that please use the sales prospecting tool to find the consulting firms in the US that will be good targets for me to sell accounting software to. Right, before I click submit, I just want to check again on the workflows that I have, which is the MCP server. If from Claude, if we successfully execute or trigger this MCP server, I should be able to see executions here, and I should also be able to see the MCP server calling this sub workflow and see executions here. Right now there's no executions. So back to Claude. So now Claude, because I told Claude I already have a tool installed, and Claude now is using my tool, and it says here calling the this API or this sub workflow that is being exposed by my MCP server. So let's see if it's accessing now. There it is. Okay. So for some reason it's not shown here the execution of the MCP, but I can see the sub workflow running. It's executing, and then on Claude side, it's waiting for the sub workflow to execute. Okay, now I'm looking at the MCP server execution log. So here I can see Claude did actually trigger this MCP server, and the MCP server did trigger this sub workflow, and the query from Claude here actually went into the workflow here with additional description, and with the help of the sub workflow, this is the output coming from the sub workflow. Let's take a look at the sub workflow execution. It's still running, or it's completed. Now within the sub workflow, there's also execution log, whereby here it says that this sub workflow was executed by another workflow with this query input string, and this sub workflow went ahead to do its job, which is to trigger Firecrawl and Hunter.io. Okay, and then finally get all the data, structure it into a JSON with a prospect list, and return this result back to the main workflow that called this sub workflow, which is the MCP server. That is why here on the MCP server you can see the prospects. So let's take a look at the prospects found. So this MCP server is doing its job as a tool. And first prospect is Mike Hefferman, Chief Financial Officer. So let's take a look at Claude here. So yes, and the result now returned from the MCP server to Claude as the external application is the same as what we see in the log here. Let's check another prospect, Debbie, as the second prospect. Debbie, she's the Executive Vice President and CFO of Guidehouse. Okay, do we have Debbie here from Guidehouse? Now notice that there's something missing. There's only company name, the contact, and also the reason why, or the rationale why this prospect is being selected. So the emails are missing. So I can, but here, if we look at the MCP server log, this email has been already retrieved by Hunter.io and being passed back to Claude. So let me ask Claude, where are the email addresses? See, so Claude is being honest. Yes, you're right, the tool did return email for each contact. Here you are. Okay, that concludes my video to demonstrate how MCP server works and how easy it is to set up and how useful it is to use MCP server to expose workflows that you have. Although here I only have one workflow to be exposed, but imagine if you have 10 workflows and each of the workflow calling a lot of tools. Just like here, I have my one workflow that calls Firecrawl and Hunter.io and also format output to JSON. So it simplifies the work of building Agentic AI application by using MCP. I don't have to, for external applications that would like to use tools, they don't have to write many API calls in the application. For example, here Claude do not even have to do any coding at all, but Claude can make use of functions that are exposed through the MCP server. Thank you for watching.